Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of World Building with DMDave. This is our 8th episode in the series so far. So if you've been watching from the beginning, thank you so much for following. This series, if you are new to it, follows my endeavor to create an entire campaign world pretty much the same way that I would as a professional content creator. I started off with originally finding a map, recreating it in Dungeon Draft, doing some post-production edits in Photoshop, uploading it to Roll20, where I added dynamic lighting and numbered it, and then finally I'm starting to stock the dungeon using some of the tables from the Appendix A of the Dungeon Master's Guide. And that's kind of where we are here. Since the last time you watched, I have actually cleaned up these spreadsheets a little bit. I'm going to share these two once I'm done. But you can see both of them have kind of everything that's in there. I've also added in some additional columns here, and these are going to be the ones I'm going to use to help me balance the monsters that I'm going to be putting into the adventure. And we're going to do this by using the rules outlined in our Dungeon Master's Guide, specifically Chapter 3, which I believe it's page 81, which covers all the rules that you need to know to create encounter difficulties. So this one's going to be a little bit more of me kind of explaining the process of counterbalancing. If you've been in one of my classes, you probably understand some of it because I've shared it with you. But essentially, in the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons game, you create encounters by crafting or coming up with a value that is your XP threshold, or excuse me, not your XP threshold, your Adventuring Day XP. And Adventuring Day XP is more or less like the budget with which you have to spend on encounters. So if you look at, in fact, let me pull up a table for you real quick. Okay, so what we have here is our Adventuring Day XP table. You could find this on page 84 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. And what this table does essentially is tell you the budget with which you have to spend to create encounters. So for example, if I wanted to create a 3rd level adventure for 4 characters, I would take 1200 there, multiply it times 4 to get 4800 adjusted XP per day. Per character, you know, it's 1200, but you multiply it by 4 so you can actually create the encounters based on the number of characters in the party. Generally speaking, I try to create stuff for 4 characters, but interestingly enough, I'm going to be running this for 5, so I'm actually going to multiply it times 5, and I'm going to be doing it for 1st level characters, so that's going to be 300. So 300 times 5 is going to be 1500. I'm going to plug that in right here to my sheet, and that's our total XP budget that you could see down here. Alright, so now that we know our total XP budget, and yeah, like I said, you can read all of this in your DM's guide. This isn't anything that I've created. It's some pretty useful information for you. Now that we've got our XP budget, it's just a matter of actually picking out some of our encounters. Now, if you've been following this series, you know that we wanted to turn these areas into caves for Grimlocks. That's kind of the theme that the map which we picked, which was from Dyson Logos' Mega Delve, the Morlock tunnels, gave. Well, there's no Morlocks in 5th edition D&D, but there are Grimlocks, and for the purposes of what we're doing here, I think that's close enough. Alright, so they're going to be our dominant monster, and if you remember from our last video, we had pets and allies, random creatures, and then dominants. So we know that we want this to be our dominant creature. And what I want to do is this whole upper level here is going to be balanced perfectly for a group of 5 1st level characters. Which means after I'm building in the experience for each individual encounter, it should not go over 1500. And now this is also going to be adjusted experience too, and I'll show you what that means in a second. So area 5 in our upper Morlock levels, if you don't remember, this is our upper levels right here, and area 5 is this spot right here. So this spot, this little secret door leads further down into the Morlock's retreat. And let's see, I'll show you where it leads. It leads to here. My thought is, like, they're probably guarding something there. So we have all these natural buildings here, and looking at our other sheet, we can see that we've got some dominance in areas 1, funny enough, because 1 is actually, I believe, going to be this side. We've got some more dominant in area 9, area 6, so let's see where those are on our map. Area 9's here, so that's great, and this is area 6, right? So it's perfect. They're guarding whatever their boss or so. I would say that the boss will probably be in area 9. That seems like the perfect place to put him. So let's give us a couple guards here, and let's take a look at what we can learn about Morlocks. If you ever need to find a monster and you don't feel like digging it up, most of the monsters, we're using Grimlocks, most of the monsters that you want to find are going to be in somewhere on Google. If it's an SRD monster, meaning that it's a monster that appears in the system's reference document, like Grimlocks do, chances are it's going to appear in one of two sources, which you can read the stat block. You've got Roll20 and then D&D Beyond. I'm going to use Roll20s. We're going to open this up real quick, and Roll20's got every single one of the monsters available for you to read, at least the ones that are in the system's reference document. Any other monsters that are in 5th edition that aren't in the system's reference document, you probably have to refer to the book or some site that's printing it without permission from Wizards of the Coast, but Roll20 has a pretty good relationship, so they're going to stick with it. Alright, so here's what we know about the Grimlock. A Grimlock is going to be a medium humanoid. They're neutral evil, which means they might follow their own code of laws, but they don't care about other people's laws, and they'll do pretty much whatever just to cause evil. Armor class 11, hit points 11, speeds 30. They're pretty strong, have some other good physical abilities, not smart, and really not that perceptive, and they're frankly kind of ugly. So bad mental proficiencies, which means they're just kind of primitive, and not even like a good kind of primitive, like, you know, understanding nature. They're just plain old primitive, bash you in the head. They're very strong, great athletics, so they're good at wrestling. They got some stealth skills, which really helps them because they got stone camouflage. And probably their best power is that they've got blind sight, because the Grimlock doesn't have any eyes. They can detect things in the dark through, I guess what they call blind senses, which is basically using their hearing and their smell, is what it sounds like. So they're never going to have really any lights on, because the lights are going to give advantage to their prey. So we're going to have a very dark place here. And they probably want to use stone camouflage too. Now, we know that there are 50 experience points, and that's pretty important because this is actually how we're going to do our plan. So I think what I want to do is I want to put in on our upper level here, where there's this one dominant area, number 5. Let's put 3 Grimlocks there. Okay. So a Grimlock is going to be they're a CR 1/4 creature. That means they have 50 experience points with which to that they award their actual XP. So if the party kills them and you're using experience points for rewards versus milestones, they get 50 points per Grimlock. So 3 Grimlocks, they're going to get 150 XP. So since we know the actual value of the Grimlocks in terms of experience, what they reward, we actually have to figure out their adjusted experience, which is the rate, sort of like their cost. Now, the adjusted experience is not the amount that the players earn after defeating it. It's just used for the calculation of how difficult a particular encounter is, because the concept is basically that multiple creatures are deadly than their individual sums. So if you were to fight these 3 Grimlocks, one after another, you fought one, another one appeared, you fought that one, that's going to be a lot easier fight than if they were all together at the same time, because ultimately they're going to have more action economy. So when you're balancing your encounters, you have to factor this in using a table that you can find in the DMG on page 82 called your encounter multipliers table. The way this works is that one monster has just a multiplier of 1. 2 monsters will have a multiplier of 1.5, so if it was 2 Grimlocks costing a grand total of 100, they would actually their adjusted experience would be 150. 3 to 6 gets times 2. So we know that we had 3 Grimlocks. They would get that times 2 multiplier. So we're going to go back to our sheet here, and I'm going to stick that value in for a multiplier. And then my sheet's automatically going to factor it all in for us. So the adjusted XP becomes 300, which leaves us 1,200 remaining budget to spend. And then per character, that gives us 75. All right, so the next table that we want to look at is our encounter difficulty XP per character table. So in our sheet, we determined that per character, the encounter difficulty XP is 75, right? So it's not actually this number divided by our number of characters, and actually we need to do like that. Sorry, I had the multiplication wrong. It's supposed to be by 5, right? There we go. All right, so it's 60 per character. Now, if we cross-reference our table here, you can see that there's 3 or 4 different values. One for easy, one for medium, one for hard, and one for deadly. And our encounter difficulty on this is actually going to be pretty close to medium. Kind of in between medium and hard, but I'm going to call it medium because it's 60 for this encounter. So we're going to type in medium there, and that lets us know that this is an encounter that the characters should reasonably be able to overcome. Another thing I like to do when I'm building it out like this, and I've already got a Roll20 version of it open, I like to go directly into Roll20 and just start putting in my encounters there so I remember I have them. What I'm going to do is go to here, our compendium. It's got all of the books that I've got loaded up in here. If you don't have the books purchased through Roll20, that's okay. You can still use a Grimlock because it is an SRD monster. But if you use the SRD version, it's not going to come with art, so you're going to have to bring your own art. That's the only kind of the catch with this. But in this case, we actually get to use the art from Wizards of the Coast. So you can get to see we've got the cool art from whoever designed it. You can see the character sheet is exactly like the one we reviewed on Roll20 and has all that cool stuff in there. And it's also dropped a POG here for us to use. I've put it on the GM token. You can put it on the regular if you want, but my thought is these guys are almost always going to be stealthy, and they're going to most likely hear characters coming like a mile away. I like to turn on the nameplate, so I make a few adjustments here. Let me go back and show you. If you double click on it, you can see it's got different stuff that you can edit. I like to turn on their nameplate, so that lets me be able to see it when I'm operating it. It's already got its hit points in place as well as its armor class. Don't really need to turn any of this stuff on. It's fine the way it is. Let's go ahead and turn dynamic lighting on. They've got 30 feet of night vision with a white tent is the way that they've plugged it in. And I think that should be pretty good. Let's go ahead and save our settings. And let's see how good his sight is once we get up to here. So once he's going, if I hit Control L, you can see through his eyes pretty well. Okay. But I want to put him back on the GM later because he's going to be hidden when the players first go to mess with them. So go to your layer option, click GM layer. And then from there, all we need to do to save the settings that we changed to him and apply it to the other ones, we're just going to put the other ones there. So there's our 3 Grimlocks there. We could put a 4th one in and make it a little bit harder, but I think 3 is pretty good. Now it's going to be clear too, and kind of a nice signal to the players that they're defending something here, which is the back entrance to their hideout. Alright, so we got our 3 Grimlocks. Pretty good there. Let's see what else we got to build. That's pretty much all the dominants in there. The next we would have to determine would be their pets and allies. I think we're going to hold off on those for the next episode. So with this one, we've built one single encounter with a dominant creature. I think in the next episode, I actually want to figure out a few more details about this dungeon, as in the why the characters need to go there in the first place. So we're going to back up a little bit. Arguably, I should have done this first, but I already kind of had an idea that I built in my last How to Write Tabletop Adventures class. But on the next episode, I'm going to show you how to come up with your concept for the adventure, as well as kind of the adventure hooks and the way this particular adventure is going to end. So anyways, hope you liked this video. If you would, as always, hit the like button down there. I love it when you do that. Be sure to subscribe so you can see more of these videos. And if you like, check out my Patreon at www.patreon.com/DMDave. Anyways, catch you guys next time.